Hi guys, how's it going? So today we're going to be going through this problem called subscription overlap. This is another hard problem. I pretty much enjoyed solving this problem. I think it was quite interesting. I've learned a lot and came up with some good techniques that I would like to share with you guys. Most importantly, explain it in such a way that it's easy for you guys to kind of like grasp the technique and the concept and the intuition. So without wasting any time, let's get into it. So we are told that we're given a table of product subscription with the subscription start date and end date for each user. So we need to write a query that returns true or false whether or not each user has a subscription date range that overlap with any other completed subscription. So a completed subscription, we can think of it as it has an end date, that's what it is. But I know this might sound too mouthy, so what I like to do is I'd like to show you an example so that you understand what this question actually wants. So we can think of the first user as their start date is 2019 January 1st, and the end date is 2019 Jan 31st. And the second user is the January the 15th, and their end date is January the 17th. So we can see that there's an overlap between these users' date because of the 15th lies in between of the date. Yes, it lies in between, right? So essentially, when they say overlap from a visual perspective, let's say we have a user with the start date from here and the end date from here, and the second user's date is going to start here and their end date could end here. So this is an overlap because their start date essentially was between the user's the user's subscription period. So we call this an overlap. We're not only looking at the start date, by the way, we can also look at the end date. Let's say the second user's time period was like this and the first user's was like this. So this is also an overlap. So essentially, for you to kind of like grasp the concept more, we consider when there is no overlap, essentially the first user's start date and end date should be greater than the first user's start date. So it should be the end date should be greater than the start date. And also, we're not looking only at the end and start. We also need to consider the start of the first user. So the start should be less than, should be less than this user's, maybe there's another user here, so should be less than an end. So you can see that there is nothing here, there is no user with the date between this period. There is no other user here, there is no other user here. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that kind of like gives you an idea of what an overlap is. Because of that, now how would we then go about solving this? So one way we can think about it is that I would like to use the date that we're given here. So let's say that, okay, the first user is the first and their last date is 31. So we can think of this as 01. Then the second user is the 15th. Then it's the 17th. Then the third user is the 29th. Yes, it's the 29th. Then up to all the way to the 4th. 04, 29, then the last user is the 5th, 05, all the way to the 10th of Feb. So this is fine. So the intuition here, what we're gonna do is that we're gonna take the maximum date, the maximum end date. And the intuition behind taking the maximum end date, it is because we want to say, like I said, we want to compare the end and the start. So if now we know that, okay, because we ordered these, remember that we have to order them by their start date so that we don't have to look at all the values one by one. So we look at them in a sequential order. So this is going to make our script much easier and more efficient to work with. So what we do is that, okay, we say, what is the maximum date here? It's 31, the maximum end date. Because of this is going to be a window function, we're going to do the same thing. What is the maximum date? So it's still going to be 31. So 31 is greater than 17. Like I said, The reason we're doing this is because now we can say 17, are you greater than 31? No, that means there's an overlap. Yes, there's an overlap. You are less than this guy, so there's an overlap. Now we continue again. We ask ourselves, what is the maximum? Now it's 4. Yes, it's 4. So 31 is no longer the max. So 4 is the max because of 4, the 2nd of February, the 4th of February is greater than the 31st of January. So it's going to be the next. 10, you are greater than the 4th of February. So you're going to become the big guy. So now what do we do? Because we're working with SQL, right? We're working with SQL. We're going to use this technique called, lag. So why are we using lag? It's because we want to know, yes, we want to know the previous maximum value. So what we want to do is that we want to bring 31 here, right? We want to bring the previous maximum here, which is 4. This is just for comparison. This is just for comparison purpose. So we want to see the 4th. Are you greater than this? Yes, it's greater. That means it's not an overlap. Perfect. It's not an overlap. So the 10th, are you greater than the 4th? Yes, I am. So there is no overlap. Perfect. You're good. So you're going to understand it from a table perspective when I explain it in a much more code way. So it's going to make sense. But for now, just stick with me. Okay. So we have taken care of the end side of things, meaning that the end, but we didn't take care of the start. Remember that here also there could have been an overlap. For instance, we said that there's no overlap here, which was correct when we compared the end, but their 29 falls within this, so it's less than 31. So you see the start. So we need to also look at the start. So how do we then look at the start? So we use this technique called lag, which actually enable us to be able to take 31 and throw it to the next row, just like that, right? But now we're going to use this technique called lead. So lead, you can think of it as going to say from this row, let me just make an example so that you understand. So let's say we had 44, right? We had 41. So we can be able to access this 41 here, right? So that's what lead actually enable us to do. So the reason I'm going to use lead is because I want this value here. Yes, I want this start because I want to compare it on the same line. So I'm going to take this 15 and bring it here on this column. And I'm going to say, hey, you, the first guy, are you actually greater than 15? If not, then it's an overlap. Yes, it's an overlap. Remember that we said that, let's make another example, right? We said that when there is no overlap, it's supposed to be like this. Yes, that means that this start is going to be actually greater than this end, right? It's going to be greater, and this end is going to be less than this start. So that's why here, when I get 15, I put it here and I ask the question, hey, you guy, are you actually greater than this? If not, I know that, okay, there's an overlap, and which is true, there's an overlap. Why am I using lead? What happened when there might be a row that is like this, something like this? Why am I taking the second row? That's because we're leveraging the fact that they are ordered. So there will never be something like this. There will never be. These things are ordered. We order them. So they're supposed to be like this. So that's why I'm taking the next row with confidence. I'm saying the you next row, come. You next row, because they are ordered. Here it has to be 42. They are ordered. 43, they're ordered. So we will never see something like 38. Because we order them. So that's the point. But the guys, the main important thing here is that we're just looking at the start and we're looking at the end. We're just making sure that, for instance, we say, okay, start, you should be greater than the previous end. Then you end, you should be greater than this next start. And we know that no one should be here, because when we compare here, we make sure that these things are ordered, so there will never be anyone in the future who can fall in here because we order them. So we leverage in the ordering so that the next rows don't like fall here. But yeah, I think that's the main idea. Some of you guys might be software engineers and might know on LeetCode there's this problem called merge intervals. So it's similar to merge intervals. It's just that now we're solving this on SQL, and the tricky part with SQL is that we need to like compare these things on the row wise. That's why we need these functions like lead and leg, because we need to bring these numbers to be on the same row so that we can do comparison among them. So that's what we did. And so without wasting any time, let's look at the code and try to write the code and see how far we can get. Okay, let's solve this problem now. What I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna just say create an overlap because I want the maximum end date. So I'll explain as I go on, but let's just do it. So what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna select user. So this is the table, by the way, and this is the schema. So I'm referencing this column from here. So it's gonna be user ID. Then we're gonna have start date. We're gonna have end date. So I want to make sure that I get the maximum. Yes, I get the maximum end date. You remember the technique where I explained that you wanna make sure that you get the maximum date for each row, but they are ordered. So this way you can actually compare the end of each row with the max guy. So that's what I'm doing now. So I'm gonna write this window function without partitioning, just to make sure that please order by start date asynchronously. I think that's default anyway, but it's fine. Then I'm gonna say max so far. I'm gonna call this one max so far. This is coming from the table called subscription. To avoid silly bugs, I'm just gonna copy this table name, and I'm just gonna order by start date. So we're saying that when we order them by start date, we're just getting the max so far. So we can think like we're gonna get the max. For instance, just to remind you, is that what's the max here? So we know that the max date is 31. What's the max? We ordered them by date, so here it's still gonna be 31. So 31 is still gonna be the max. So what's the max? 31 is no longer the max. This will be the max. This will be the new max, just like that. And I explained the intuition behind this is because now we can compare the end date with the max. So that's the point. Now let's write those functions that we spoke about. We call the lead and lag. So essentially they enable us to be able to compare these values on the line on the row wise level. So that's what we're gonna do. So we're gonna say select user ID, then I'm just gonna select the start date, and I'm gonna make sure that I get the end date. Then I'm using this function called a lag, which is going to take the max so far. So I'll explain now in a second. So we're gonna say over, then I'm just gonna say order by max so far, and we're gonna say lag dates. So essentially what I'm doing here is that essentially we're saying that, okay, take the max so far, like for example 31, and bring it here so that we can compare 16 and the previous max value, which is 31. And similarly here we have 4, but we want to compare it against 31, so we're going to bring 31 here. We're going to say 31, so we can see that, okay, the fourth is greater than 31, so this is not an overlap. So that's what lag essentially does for us. So yeah, I hope you can still remember what we did on the whiteboard, because I can't write down here, so I hope you understand. So now we're gonna do a lead. So I'm gonna write 1 because I want to take one value from the start table. So you can think like by one I mean like take 15, bring it here, take 29, bring it here. So it's 1 goes here, just like that, right? That's what it means. So I'm just gonna say over order by start date. Then I'm gonna say lead dates. So this is what I do. Then I'm gonna say all of these are coming from the table that we created, which is called overlap. So now I think it's important to kind of like run this so that you guys can see actually what we have. I think it might give you more, it might help you to understand more. So I'm just gonna say select lead leg. So I'm just gonna scroll down just to show you what we have so far. So this is what we have, and which makes sense. So as you can see that what leg did was that it had to take the maximum value and bring it to the first row element, had to bring it to the second row, and like so forth. So the first row was not going to have anything. Yes, it makes sense. And similarly with the lead, because we took the second element, and we brought it to the first row. So the last row essentially is not going to have anything. But what does this tell us? It simply tells us that the first row is the first. This is where there is null. This is the first row on the leg. So the first row. So essentially, we should be looking at the end date, where the end date is actually less than the lead date. And similarly, where we have the lead is equals to null, so we should be looking at where the start, right? The start is greater than the leg. So I think that makes sense. Then these ones that do not have a null, so these ones are going to be easy. We're just going to make sure that the start date is greater than the leg and the end date is less than the lead. So just like I explained in the one node. So that's what we're gonna do. So I'm just gonna say please get me the user ID, because we are told that we have to, this is the output that they want, so they want the user ID and the overlap. So I'm gonna get the user ID, and then I'm gonna create a case statement, right, to cater for this. So I'm gonna say when leg dates is actually null, and the end date is actually less than the lead dates, right? When it's less than the lead dates, then I want to say this is 0. So just to verify, they said that where there's an overlap, it should be 1, just to make sure that we're doing the right thing. Okay, they did not let us know, but I'm just gonna assume that and where there is no overlap, it's 0, then the overlap is 1. So just to explain this code, what it does, essentially we're saying that the end date, it should be less than the lead, right? So essentially the lead is the start of the next row. So let's go to one node again, just to iterate. I just want you to understand and have a deep understanding of this. So we're saying that the end here, right? So we can think of this as the end. So we're saying that it should be less than, yes, we should be less than this next row, right? If this is not true, then we know that, okay, that means this is somewhere around here, because that means this is going to be greater. So there's an overlap. Hence there, I say, if this is true, then I want this to be 0, because there is no overlap if it's like this. Okay, so I hope that gives you a better perspective there. So that's what I'm doing here. So I'm gonna say when lead, so this is the same concept, when lead dates is null, and right, and we're saying just gonna try to be consistent with this script, and we're gonna say is when start date is actually greater than the leg date, then 0. Then we're gonna say when start. Now we're looking at the values where there is no null, so we're gonna say when start is greater than the lag date, right? And we're gonna say when end date is actually less than the lead. This is gonna be the lead date. Then I'm gonna say 0. So else none of those things are correct, are true, then I know that we have found an element with there is no overlap. So I'm gonna say, so please end this as an overlap. They're calling it an overlap, so we're gonna do that. And this is coming from our lead table. So I'm gonna run this. I always make mistakes, and I'm thinking I have a mistake probably. Oh, no mistake. This is a miracle. So let me submit this and see how far we get. And it works. So definitely it worked. So thank you guys, I really appreciate it. So please subscribe if you did like the content. I really appreciate it. And yeah, stay tuned for more, and I'll keep on doing the SQL program if you did enjoy them. See you in the next one. Bye.